We are on the roof of the Dead Canary Bar, live on Canary Radio. It's Sunday, August 13th, and I'm joined by two very special people today. They say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I certainly hope that's true, because I got 2 of the most successful, funny, cool guys with me. My boss and co-host, Jeremy Tilton, and my father, Joshua Kinne. And August 13th, let's go. It's International Left-Handers Day. So, comment if you're left-handed. What percent of people are left-handed? Not a very big amount.
Know.
Your youngest brother's left-handed.
Is he?
Yep.
Shout out.
Sam
Kinne. It's also Gay Uncle Day. You know it? Know anybody? You have a gay uncle?
Do not have a gay uncle.
I think I might, honestly. Not gonna shout him out though for that one. It's Melon Day and National Filet Mignon Day. Good combo right there. I think that's what we're doing today. And Prosecco Day, and we have our mimosas here, and it's breakfast radio, and we're eating some breakfast too. I got a breakfast burrito. Just
from the Outlaw.
Shout out Outlaw.
Shout out to Juan over the Outlaw. Adding Oaxaca cheese to all this stuff. It's delicious.
They messed up some of the order, but they're pretty good food. Mine was good. And it's Women's and Families Day. So call your mom, sister, daughter, greet them with a happy Women's and Families Day.
We took Grandma out to breakfast this morning.
All right. Perfect. All right, fade that music out. So, where do we begin? Let's see. I think we talk about how we're all here. It's just past noon. And this is early for me. I feel like it's going to be a long day. I woke up early, worked late, was up, setting up the equipment. My dad, this is probably already getting late for him. He's ready for a nap almost.
True story. I'm definitely an early person. I like to get a lot of work done uninterrupted. And come 8 o'clock, the phone starts ringing like crazy. So
yeah,
I like those early morning hours. And your brother Boaz has joined that club. Starting today, he is 5 a.m. every day.
It's unreal.
What's his 5 a.m. club? I've never heard of this.
One of my favorite stories was about 2 or 3 years ago, I was plowing snow. And I start the Mountain Medical Center at 3:30 in the morning. That's my first plow. And I drive by one of the local bartenders' house, and I can see him in the window doing dishes. And he called me a couple minutes later, and he's like, Josh, I just realized something. He's like, you just woke up and are getting ready to begin your work day. And I said, yes. He goes, I am just coming home from cleaning the bar and getting ready to make my dinner and get ready to watch a movie, And it was like, whoa, that's so weird how we can live side by side and have such different ways of life. And he goes, I tell you what, he goes, I can start calling you at 3 a.m. and letting you know that you got to plow. And it was the best 2 years of my life. And then he moved.
Yeah, we miss you, Benjamin.
Yep.
Sometimes I'm going to bed after a long night, and Ouray hanging out, I got to wind down after work, close at midnight, 1, after a karaoke night or something, and then I'm like, what now? Go to the other bar, hang out, meet some friends, we do something, and then I'll go home, get on my phone, I'm like, well, it's bedtime, and it's my dad's waking up time. Yeah. It's like 6 o'clock, 3 or 4, yeah. Yeah, I guess more of a night owl.
Yeah.
It was always hard for me to wake up for school. That was the hardest thing. Gotten some of the worst fights I ever had with my parents about waking up on time. But
yeah, you were physically impossible to get out of bed.
Damn right.
Absolutely. I only had the nightlife once, and that was when I was working at Orvis Hot Springs in the 90s. I was doing 4 to 11 on the weekends. And I understand, very quickly I adapted to that life of, hey, I got off at 11. Now it's time to get some food, then relax. I might soak in the pond till 2 o'clock in the morning. But those days are long gone.
Gets harder and harder to get up early.
Yeah.
Yep. Luckily I found a job I don't have to wake up early anymore.
That's right.
I can just kind of just be with my own rhythm. Just night person. I like the silence. I just like to think at night and stay up, play games, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's funny about the early mornings and the late nights. They're almost the same thing, right? For the people, it's like the quiet time to get your stuff done.
Exactly.
I sometimes the most productive I am is at midnight till 3 a.m. if I'm up late, or 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. when I'm up early. It's kind of a great time to really just be with yourself and get your stuff done.
So, Dad, you have a good piece of advice. Did you start doing that yourself, or did you start waking up really early?
It was my friend John Peters, I think, was a big influence on me on that one. As my business started to grow, and by that I mean now it's not just money for me and my family. I'm now feeling responsibility for multiple people and their well-being. That was a lot of pressure. You start getting payroll happening with big numbers that you're paying out a lot of money, and you start feeling major responsibility for other families' well-being. And I all of a sudden started seeing some of those numbers, and all of a sudden I'm waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning going, oh my gosh, what happens if we have a bad week next week? How am I going to pay these guys?
Totally.
And so that would get on my mind. And I was sharing that with my buddy John, and he said, hey, I learned something long ago. When you wake up, get up and get to work immediately. He said, go downstairs and start working immediately. And it's almost like there's two things that can happen. For me, every Monday morning, I've now made this my Monday morning thing. I do this every Monday. Get up super early. I get a notebook and I write down jobs that I promised people that I would complete. And I sit there and I physically write a list of every person that I said, okay, we promised to do your carpets on Tuesday morning. We promised to build you a set of stairs on Wednesday. And I physically write that down. And every Monday, that's roughly 15 to 20 names that I can pop off in about 20 minutes off the top of my head. And then I flip the page and I say people that I owe money to. And I write out maybe a subcontractor, or did I promise someone in Honduras a little money to help them and their family. I write out those names. And then third, I put down the people that owe me money for jobs that I've completed. And let's say that whole process takes an hour. You instantly feel relief. I mean, I physically feel it in my shoulders. Totally. Oh, man. And one of two things happens. Then you are free to go back to bed if you want, but I almost never do. Now it's like, hey, I started at 3 o'clock in the morning. I can be done by noon today and have a huge day of work. And so, yeah, like I said, up until about 6:30, I'm working. That's my first break of the day. My boys wake up. They come on down. I make them some breakfast to get them ready for school, make my wife coffee, try to do whatever I can for my family from about 6:30 to 7:45, and then they're all out the door, and I feel like I just had a little break, and now I can continue my work day.
Nice.
Yep.
There's that book out there that's called Eat That Frog, right? And that's really what you're doing in practice, and it's really cool to hear that, because a lot of times you hear these sayings, eat that frog, and you're like, what does that actually mean? And it's get up in the morning and go to work, and there's some more extreme sayings out there today, and more extreme people on the TikToks and the Instagrams and all that about, this Goggins, whoever he is, he's like, if you don't feel like running, get up and run. You don't feel like working out, you work out. You don't feel like clean your house, clean your house. It's like, there's a more extreme way to say it, but it's true. Like, we can get in our own way a lot of times, right? Yeah. With the overthinking things, or, maybe thinking I'm a little tired and I need to sleep in, or whatever it is. But if you get up and actually get into that mode, you find flow quicker, and that's what we're all looking for, right?
How many hours have people spent laying in bed saying, oh, I really need to get a few more hours of sleep.
Right.
And then you're just sitting there thinking the whole time.
Oh, God. And what you were saying about getting that stuff on the list, like that resonates with me as well, because I wake up at 3 in the morning, same thing, thinking about payroll, thinking about what if we have a bad, week at the restaurant, and my day job's commission based as well. And I think about, what if customers stop buying this product or whatever it is. And you get some of that stuff down on paper, what you're like obligated to do and what you're working on. It kind of quells those fears a little bit.
Monday, there's a mindset too. Monday, I always joke to everyone, is my second favorite day of the week. And it's because I love that feeling of early in the morning writing that stuff down. And then all of a sudden, it doesn't feel impossible anymore.
Right.
It can start building up, and you can say, did I take on too many jobs? Are we going to be able to make this couple happy?
Oh, right.
And trying to balance that with making sure the employees get paid, right?
Yeah.
So I always joke, it's my second favorite day of the week, man. I get all that taken care of.
And just off your plate.
Off the plate by noon, I'm feeling awesome.
That's great. Yeah, and I mean, that's a big thing that a lot of people don't understand is when you take on the challenge and the responsibility to own your own business, it's less about what kind of money you're making and more about supporting this new thing you have going, your employees, their families, making sure that it happens, right? And that's a whole different level of just, I don't even know how you'd say it, right? It's a challenge that a lot of people don't understand.
Sure. Yeah, forever with my business, it was just me. It was just me doing my thing, It kind of grew organically and naturally. In some ways, you believe God took over and made things happen. For me, particularly, I was working by myself, and my brother-in-law came to town and needed some work. And it was like, oh, well, I guess, maybe we could have two of us. And all of a sudden, what that started happening was we started getting bigger jobs because there wasn't just me.
For sure.
And then people started coming to me, hey, I kind of need some work. And I would always think, well, geez, I don't even know if there's enough work for me, let alone other people.
Yeah.
But I always trusted and said, okay, well, let's see, maybe this will work out. And when Corey joined the team, it was like, well, I don't know if there's enough work, Corey, but I do have this one client that needs some digging done. And at the end of the day, that client calls me and goes, I don't know who your new guy is, but that was like the best service that we've ever gotten from you guys. We love him. Nice. And we have a ton more work that we want him doing. And it was like, congratulations, you're on the team type thing. And right now, I wouldn't want it to be any bigger. Right now, I've got 4 full-time guys, 3 part-times, and it's about as much as I can manage. It's when the winter comes, some of those guys go off to the ski resort, and I'm almost relieved of like, I need this little break. But then in April, I'm really happy that they're coming back.
Totally.
It's
awesome. Funny how like different industries up here, you're talking, construction and cleaning type stuff. But with the restaurants, it's almost like the same exact thing, right?
Right.
It's the same season. It's the same type of situation with employees. We go from 7 in the winter to 22 in the summer. And I don't know how we do it every spring, but we find those 12, 15 people.
Awesome.
And we're at the same boat. Like, we're talking about expanding, and it's like, what is that balance? What is that balance between quality of life, solidifying the future, and not overextending, right? And that was like, when my younger years, it was all about go big, extend. Now I'm a little bit humbled, right? And it's like, there's a weight that comes with that.
There's like, a huge weight that comes with it.
And it's not just like sunshine and roses, it's like, there's a whole bunch of trivial things that happen, and a lot of challenging
Get
things.
Your quarterly tax bill the same day that you just ran payroll.
Yeah, on the same day you just did rent.
Insurance is due tomorrow. You're like, oh man, you just watched like 5 figures in the account disappear, And
then you hope that it comes
hard.
back, right?
Yeah.
By next payroll.
Exactly.
Look at these bosses. Yep, responsible for other people's lives and well-being, and me. I'm pretty happy to have a job that I finish work and I'm done. I don't have to think about too much. I do have that freedom. I can imagine the way because I don't have it. It's like when I'm done, I'm done. I'm like, yep, I will still know how to do this tomorrow, and I'll be back at it. Serving drinks, talking to people, but I don't have to focus on, a whole lot of other stuff. Like, that's a big weight there. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, one day, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Some people do, and some people don't want to, and that's okay.
It's okay.
We need all different types of people contributing to the community, and it's okay if you don't want to run your own business, but anyone that does, I'm always here to help them with anything I can. I don't see other people as competition. I've never owned a restaurant, but one thing I'm a big fan of the restaurants, right? Yeah. I'm a big supporter of my restaurants, and I love the culture. And I think there used to be a worry from people that owned a restaurant of, if this other restaurant comes into town, it's going to steal my customers. What I'm seeing is I go to Denver now, and my server says, "Hey, where are you in from?" And I say Ridgway, and they go, "Oh, we love Ridgway, Ouray. We live in Denver. We go down there once a month just because of all the great restaurants. Mm-hmm. We get a hotel and we sit there and bounce back and forth between Ridgway and Ouray." Mm-hmm. You know why they do that? Because we don't have 4 restaurants like we used to. We have 14, right? And that's why people can make this a destination to come to. So the more the merrier, I think.
Absolutely. That. Yeah, there's that all ships rise with the rising tide, right?
Right.
And if we get more people into the valley and into these towns, it's good for everybody, not just the restaurants. It's good.
They're going to go out twice a day minimum. And if they're going through the list, let's say there's 10 meals to be had, good chance you're going to be one of them.
Yeah. And the beauty we have is there's no fast food, right?
Right.
So you're coming up here and you're getting authentic. You're getting Ridgway, Ouray. You're not getting, Applebee's, which is fine for what it is, but, or any of those restaurants.
My understanding is Ouray County never outlawed fast food. What they said was
no chains.
No, because we had Subways.
Oh, that's right.
We had a Subway in Ouray and Ridgway.
Yeah.
But the Subways didn't have a drive-through. What Ouray County said was there's 2 places that are allowed to have a drive-through, and that's the pharmacy and a bank.
No kidding.
No restaurants.
So there's no franchise limitation.
Not that I know of. We had Subway, but I think it's because of the no drive-through that a McDonald's hasn't come to Ouray.
Why do you think Subway didn't last up here? Because it was at the gas station in Ridgway, and then it's our location where the full tilt is in Ouray used to be the Subway.
Exactly.
Why do you think those didn't work up here?
Well, I think the one in Ridgway was a personal scenario with the owners.
Yeah, I do remember talking about
I don't think
spaces.
They weren't failing.
No, it was more about the parking spaces were taken up from the Subway that could have been used for the gas station. So it was a little bit of a business competition thing, right?
Sure, yeah.
Hashtag brings Subway back.
Oh, Shannon, as a kid, was so disgusting. He would get chicken on a sub and put 4 different sauces on it.
I still do that. Oh. We call it a soup sandwich. I go up and I'm just like, yep, honey mustard, ranch, I want some buffalo, everything on there, boom.
Now, remember at the beginning of this podcast, you said, I'm going to talk less so that I don't sound like a fool.
Yeah, we're
That's what you get for inviting your dad to the podcast.
I know. It's all right. Yep. Man, I can't believe there was a Subway here in our restaurant.
Right. Yeah, it was a Subway, it was a grocery store, and then it was an Irish pub, and now
it's the best restaurant in the world. What do you do?
Yeah.
Just, sorry, Subway. Got beat. So you can have a chain here, but just no drive-through.
No drive-throughs.
Yep.
Interesting.
All right.
Well,
new business.
What chain should we bring if we brought a chain? I don't think a chain would work up here.
Domino's.
Squash
those pizzas.
There's not enough pizza in the 2 towns.
I suppose
the 10 pizza restaurants that we have.
I don't think it's which restaurant. It's when is someone going to offer delivery?
They got one.
We got one in Ouray.
Mine Shaft at the Twin Peaks. They will do delivery.
They will deliver, and they have their menu is impressive.
Nice.
Fried chicken, pizza, pasta.
Yeah,
and I think the cook cooks the food and delivers. It's very impressive.
Oh, that's nice.
Right.
I like that. Yeah, during COVID, a couple of the Ridgway restaurants started doing delivery, but
you only really need like 1 or 2 people right, per town that did like an Uber Eats or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
And just that could be a job for one, 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid, that all they do is they set up menus online and you just deliver the food that's local and just have a radius in Ridgeway and Ouray.
I was up in Denver for a bachelor party. And I was so excited that you could order delivery, right? I just was, I'm in the city. Like, we can order delivery. So I call up a pizza joint, ordered like 5 pies for all these guys. They were out for the evening. I was home. And I was like, they're going to come back hungry. So I got all these pizzas ordered. Never showed up.
Oh.
It didn't show up. I'm like,
didn't show
what?
up, or the people?
The pizza didn't show up. So in the morning, I go, guys, did you ever get the pizzas? And they're like, no. 11:40 the next day at 11:40 in the morning, my phone rings. Hey, we've got your pizzas. I'm like, I ordered that for 11:40 last night. Oops.
So no pizza for the bachelor party.
Well, half the guys were on the road heading back to Ridgeway, and I called them and I said, turn around, the pizza's got here. And, we'll be right there.
And a refund too. Jeez, day late on my order.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I go out to California frequently. My girlfriend lives out there, and I just laugh because I'll go to her house, and the only thing I do is Uber Eat. Like, I'm eating, Indian food. They have a place out there called Curry Pizza, and it took us forever to decide if we were going to try this. And finally, one day, we were bold enough to order it. Turns out the tikka masala on a pizza is delicious.
Yeah. Oh, life changes if you open up your mind. I was one of these guys that would find a food that I liked, and I would order it every time I went to that restaurant. Right?
Yeah.
And it was right before I got married to Marcia. Her parents came out, and they gave me a call at work and said, "Don't worry about dinner tonight. We ordered Chinese." And I said, "Oh, okay, great." And I get there, and I look at the 5 dishes they ordered, and my first thought was, none of that is anything that I ever would have ordered.
Yeah.
That was my first thought. I never would have ordered any of those dishes. So I had a little of each, loved every single one of them. And I that was the theme of my honeymoon was I'm going to get something different than I ever would order every time now.
That's the beauty of going to restaurants is not only the experience and the ambiance, but like being opened up to different cultures via their food, right? And I learned that a long time ago back in the Navy that, I was small town Colorado, right? Grew up in like Greeley, Loveland, all that. And didn't really have like an experience of any kind of food that wasn't like from Walmart in a box. We didn't go to restaurants or anything like that. But, traveling the world ended up in some situations where like they're having full ducks that are like fried and, in Hong Kong on the side of the road. And we're like ordering the street food. Yeah. And it just was like life altering. It was amazing, and now it's like, I'm the same way. I like to order any kind of weird food that's out there, and try it at least once.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. One of the beauties of traveling. I mean, there's almost nothing you can say about traveling that isn't beautiful.
Right.
But certainly learning other people's foods is up there on the list of just amazingness. One time I was doing a house build for charity in Honduras, and we had just gotten the door hung, and I get a knock on the door. "Hey, gringo, open the door." And I opened the door, and this guy had 2 iguanas with their arms tied behind their back. And he says, "Give me $5. And I go, "Okay." And he goes, "I will prepare this for you. You're staying down at the church, right?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I'll be there at 5:30 tonight." I said, "Okay." So we gave him $5. And 5:30, he comes in with this bowl of iguana. And the toenails were still on it. The skin, you could see the eyeballs. And they just couldn't wait to watch me eat my first bite, and they sat there, eyes wide open as I'm eating bites of it. People say, "Does it taste like chicken?" No, it tastes like iguana. It's like the driest fish you can imagine with the slimiest skin. It was, I was just trying to hold myself back, and they're going, "No, that one's pregnant. The eggs is the best," and you're going, "Oh."
That's the greatest gift they can bestow on you, huh?
Were you with me? Was that when you were with me?
Yeah, I definitely had an iguana set in front of me too. We've all been to Roatan, Honduras, sir. That's for sure.
Roatan's a special place.
Yeah.
Very special.
I didn't need any. No, I couldn't do it. Jimmy John's, or what was it that we had? The chicken restaurant. The fast food chicken.
It was set up to look like, I think, a Popeyes or something, but it had a different name. You know, they changed a letter or two.
I love that.
Poop eyes.
Yeah, it's like Coming to America, right? With the Eddie Murphy movie where it was like McDonald's, not
McDonald's. Exactly. Yeah. You see that everywhere.
Yeah, Roatan was cool. We went out there, Kristen and I, with for one of my best friend's weddings, right? And I had never been to Honduras, never would have thought of going to Honduras. But I found out it's like the second largest reef in the world to dive next to Australia, right?
Yep.
And they had it was beautiful, this beachfront there, and it wasn't all that expensive for what we did. But we just hung out. We went surfing. We went snorkeling. Krista had a great time. Scuba diving. Yeah.
I've got probably close to 100 dives in Roatan.
It's beautiful.
Love it.
Roatan?
Yeah.
That's
Whoa.
Yeah, you can do 3 a day. And I was just, I was very broke. I grew up without money. Same. I left college. I had student debt for 11 and a half years, living in a yurt down by the river, Right. That's how I raised Shannon and his sister. We didn't have electricity. We didn't have running water, but we had Orvis Hot Springs.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How long did you guys do that for?
11 and a half years. I had that. Yeah.
Well, that explains a lot about Shannon.
It's a lot of why I have a passion for the charity.
Totally.
Little plug here for Coffee Homes. We're raising money to build houses and give away houses to people in Honduras and Colombia.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and a lot of my passion for it is from the fact that I know what it's like to have somewhat inadequate housing. I mean, there were days I felt horrible as a father for raising Shannon and Faith in this yurt, coming home from, a 10-hour day of construction in Mountain Village, hitchhiking home, picking them up, coming into the yurt, and the lamp oil would be frozen. That's how cold it was.
Yeah.
But as much as I felt bad about it, the kids always tell me that was like the best way of growing up ever.
Absolutely the best. A lot of reading. Nothing more important than reading when you're growing up.
Totally.
Tell you.
Yeah, that's it's an interesting thing that happens, like the way we grow up and the trials we go through, right? Like I grew up, without any kind of money as well. And I was talking to Wendy about this, who I actually met in Roatan, strangely enough, at that wedding. But we were talking about, how that shapes us and the decisions we make in our future, right? Where it's like I grew up without a lot of luxuries, if you will, even as far as just getting hearing tests and eye tests when I was younger, which I struggled in school, and I find out later that it had nothing to do with my abilities. It was just I couldn't see or hear.
Me too.
And until I had money, my own money, it was no.
Took me a long time to figure out. I would stretch my eyes.
Yeah.
Like I'd put my fingers on my eyes and do that because that's what contacts do. They shape the way your eyes are so you can see. And I just did that forever. It was so natural to me when I'm sitting and trying to look at the board or the screen or whatever, and I'd stretch my eyes. And it wasn't for a long time until somebody noticed that I was doing that. And, besides my friends goofing on me,
right,
a teacher or something that was like, that's probably a sign that your vision's not very good. And then I learned I had color blindness too. Yeah.
Yeah, that one was wild. I remember that day very much. There was a spectacular double rainbow, and we're all like, oh, wow, that is amazing. And Shannon said something
I don't get rainbows. That I see blue and a strip of blue and a strip of yellow. That's all I see. What is there really purple, red, all this stuff in there? That green? Heck no, I don't see that.
That's funny.
And like, really? You only see blue and yellow right now.
It.
All right, we're going. You're going. Yep.
Yeah.
Checked out.
Well, and getting back to the charity, that was kind of my point was we were shaped in our younger years to now once we're feeling comfortable, we want to get back, right?
Yeah.
And that was kind of the thing. I read this book I was telling you about earlier. It's like A Place Called Home from David Ambrose, and it talks about growing up homeless and in the foster care system and whatnot. And he had a lot of similar experiences that I had growing up, and just explaining the emotions from a 10-year-old point of view, and how like seeing your friends that have a full family and they get breakfast every morning and they have new clothes for school and stuff like that, how that's like could be devastating to some of these kids, because they're wearing whatever you can get for free. There's no breakfast, right? They're hungry all the time. So anyways, it opened this bigger conversation. It was like, okay, well, how do we help going forward, right, with that? And it's with charities like you're talking about, helping people have a home.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing.
I think what happens, I always had food and clothing and stuff growing up. I don't mean to sound like we didn't have maybe fancy cars and stuff, but I did grow up on a farm. So we always had food. We could go out and dip a container into the vat of milk, and have quick in milk anytime we wanted. So I don't mean to sound like, we didn't have anything, but I wouldn't call it, fancy luxury. We weren't traveling. We weren't flying on airplanes and stuff. But, you get out on your own, and I think you and I probably have a pretty similar experience. Those first decade or two, you're just trying to survive.
Oh, totally.
You're trying to figure out, how do I make my student loan payment? How do I buy a car? How in the world do I ever buy a house?
Right.
Like that was
impossible.
Speaking my language, yeah.
Absolutely impossible. And then we eventually reached this point, and it wasn't just on our own. There's always something that happens that gives you that boost.
Oh, totally.
For me with property, I was at Orvis Hot Springs one day, and a guy came in crying. And I said, "Hey, man, what's going on?" And he goes, "I'm going to lose my land. I'm going to lose my land." And I'm like, "Oh, my gosh, I'm so sorry. What's going on?" And he goes, I can't afford the payments. I'm behind on payments. And, the only thing I can think of is if I find a partner. And I said, "Well, what would a partner need?" And he goes, $400 a month. I said, "Congratulations, I'm your new partner." I shook his hand. I never even saw the land. I just shook his hand and go, I'm in. So I shook his hand, and now I'm a landowner with this guy. And it dawns on me a couple days later, you don't have anything to live in. I don't have anything to live in. 2 weeks later, the manager of Orvis at the time says, "Hey, Josh, I'm dying of cancer.
Oh, no.
Do you want my motorhome?" Gave me a motorhome.
Wow.
So we lived in that for a couple years. And, that's kind of that. Absolutely, I can look back in time and say that changed the entire outcome of my life, because now during the recession of '08, I was able to sell that land when everyone's losing everything. I got a cash offer on my half of the property, and it allowed my wife and I to get through that horrible time period where I had just paid off all my debts in life. We got married, went to Europe for 6 weeks, Italy, Greece, Turkey, just had the time of our life. Come home, no phone calls for construction for like 3 months. Ooh. And I'm going, we're just watching the money disappear. And I said to Marcia, "I think we can live for like a year, and then we're going to be totally broke. Can I start some new businesses?" She goes, "I always trust you." So that's when I bought the carpet cleaning and the snowplow.
Oh, smart.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And that kind of got us through little bits, until construction came back. Yeah.
And now you get all three.
Now I got all three. And
now you can get back a bit.
To bring it back. Yeah. Right. So you're spending all those 20 years just trying to figure out how to survive. And now, right now where we're at, it's like, I've done it. I survived. Now I need purpose in my life.
That's the exact
I can't wake up and just have another vacation day of sitting on the beach. Right. Like I can't do you. It's like, no, now I have an obligation. I need to give back.
It's an absolute obligation. Yeah. That's the way I look at it as well. Me growing up the way I did and not having a college opportunity, getting a good enough degree and joining the Navy, which was a best experience I've ever had in my life. But that was my life changing. That was my springboard into the, like, having this ability, this technical skill once I left the Navy to be able to go and get jobs. And those jobs afforded me, the ability to have these two restaurants and give back a little bit in that front. But you're absolutely right. It's that purpose. It's that, in the Navy, I always had that higher purpose. I'm doing something for the better good, right? For everybody, not just me.
Right.
And I've really been lacking that since I left the military. And this, just that book was kind of like an eye-opening, like, well, there's places you can have that purpose, right? And foster care and
sure.
doing what you're doing in Colombia and Honduras, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, parenthood gave me some of that feeling, right? Raising my kids
Sure.
always gave me that feeling. And now I'm looking at my adult kid, going
straight.
Why don't you share a little bit what you were a foster, the foster care? Share a little bit about where you're going with that right now.
Oh, yeah. So the idea with that is, there's a lot of places that people can help with foster care without, eating that whole enchilada, right? You don't have to necessarily have these kids in your home, right? So there's different ways that you can donate to your local charity for the foster care kids. You can sponsor foster care kids for college tuition, even if it's like paying for the applications, right? Because a lot of times some of these stumbling points for foster kids, they're trying to get out of the system and make their own way, is they don't have $50 to $100 per college to apply for it. And then once they get there, they don't necessarily have the support or the knowledge of what to do once they get there. Sure. They're trying to live life like they've never seen it before, right? So there's ways to mentor, like join mentorships. There's, you can just do a little bit, right? That's the point. Is like you have the ability to do a little bit. You should do a little bit.
Yeah.
And
everyone has the ability to do something.
Right.
And a lot of little itty bitty bits come together to make something really big and spectacular.
It's absolutely true.
Yeah, I learned that with drumming. When I was in college, my college roommate Ryan went to Africa, and he came back, and it changed our band. We were just a strict rock and roll band, and it was like, no, now we're going to spend an hour every practice drumming, and you learned these super simple parts. One person would have a bell, tick, tick, tick,
or cowbell,
tick, tick, tick. Right? How simple.
Right.
And the next person would have, a gourd with shells on it.
Right.
And go.
And this is all to maintain the rhythm, right?
And if each person does that little itty bitty part,
yeah.
By the time 7 people are doing that, you have this super complex polyrhythm
Beautiful
that
sound.
blows your mind.
Nice.
And that's just kind of the way that it should be with giving back to people. Is you don't have to have $1,000 a month to give to a charity, but if you just do a little bit each day, it ends up being something huge.
Yeah, and even think of like little things you can do for these foster kids or homeless kids is get them school supplies. That's a couple $100 for the year.
Yeah,
but that's life changing for them to have the actual pencils and pens and whatever you need to go to school. Where to them, that's like a huge, like, shoot, we don't even have food. How am I going to go get this other stuff, right? So
right. Some of these house builds we've done, Shannon, I took to see the very first family that I ever partook in building a house for. And you can go back 10 years later, and they'll say to you, hey, Mr. Joshua, I have a kitchen now, and I feed people that can't afford to eat because you gave me a house.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then you see how 10 years later, that's not just affecting that one family. You're not just giving a family a home. You've got maybe 4 locals building that house that are making money to provide for their family. You've got the family that's receiving the home that's life-changing money, right? 50 years salary wouldn't buy them this house. Right. That's for someone in Colorado, it's a tax write-off for their business.
Yeah, totally.
And then 10 years later, you see them giving because God bless me. Now I bless others. It's It's awesome.
So my dad went and built the house, and I came a couple months later with him to kind of check on the family and see how things were going. And already people were moved in to the house. Neighbors, everyone was living there too. It was just a sleeping area. They just had sleeping bags, and they had a little Nintendo somehow. Yeah, they had a little Nintendo. They wanted us to play their games with them. They're like, come on, it's our living room. It's right amidst the bedroom.
Yeah.
The huge bedroom.
Yeah, this is a 400 square foot house, 20 by 20, which we would consider a tiny home in America, right? Oh, that's teeny. You're giving them the keys, and they're like, can I use your phone? And they're calling up their sister. Hey, you can move in with your husband and kids. Yeah. We're rich now, like, come on in. And they were gifted, and now all they want to do is pass on the gift.
Yeah.
It's just incredible.
That goes back to a little bit where you're talking about the travel, how it opens up your perspective and your worldviews, and that's part of it right there, is seeing how people live in other parts of the world compared to the luxuries that we had. And I should say, like, growing up, I didn't grow up with any money, but we had government assistance. We grew up in government housing. So it felt rich for us to have the 2-bedroom apartment, you know, and we had, food stamps that would go get us a full grocery cart full of food. That was awesome. But there were a couple of years that didn't happen. But my point is, once I got into the Navy and I was able to go to some of these other places in the world, you think of Dubai in the Middle East, a big stark contrast between the rich and the poor. And the poor folks that live out there live in shanties. They live in literal wood shanties on the side of the highway, and they're not welcome in the rich parts of the, they're literally just subhuman to these cultures. And it's so sad and eye-opening. And then you kind of look at the stuff that we have in the U.S., that even the poor people live pretty well here in some instances, right? But we definitely don't have as many that are as needy as some of the places in the world that you can go to.
Yeah. I'll never forget Shannon when I took him down to Honduras. He was watching this kid dying of thirst. And he said, Dad, can't we buy this kid some food and give him something to drink? And the kid next to him said, yeah, and then next week you go back to America and he'll die next week instead. In Shannon's eyes, he was 13 years old, and you just saw it, like the scales fell off his eyes. He all of a sudden really knew something deep and profound, which was, it's okay if we don't get the new video game the day it comes out, right? Like, that doesn't mean we're, oh, poor me, I didn't get the new Zelda the day it came out. It's, oh, there's something much deeper here.
Right.
So to make it a little funny, we were in that area for a week, and then before we left, we went over to the rich end of Roatan, right, where all the diving and everyone's celebrating every moment, and we stand in line to get an ice cream. I said to him, hey, we just had a rough week. Right. And I said, what do you want? And he goes, I think ice cream. I said, we can get ice cream over here. So we're standing in line for an ice cream, and the woman in front of us had just gotten off of the cruise ship. And she says to this local that's serving her a scoop of ice cream, she goes, I paid in American dollars. I expect American change. Ew. And Shannon goes, no, let me tell you about this kid that I saw starving yesterday. And I go, oh, calm down, buddy. We're not saving the world today. But you just saw it in him. It absolutely changed his life. I hope that for every person in the world. I want you to go to a third world country and recognize the privilege that we have here in America. It's unbelievable.
And that was the goal, right? Like, my dad always just said, when you turn 14, we're going out of the country, we're going to a third world country, and we're going to see what things can be like. And just
what an amazing experience for you, right?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Hard stuff, and it was a really great experience. Definitely life-changing, and that's super funny. I don't know if I was especially remember that story, but all right, guys, how about we take a little break, come back?
Sounds good.
Give it a few minutes. Good.
Thanks. That was
a lot of fun. Fantastic.